Barbara Miller. Chris, in regards to the ideal orgs, if hypothetically speaking the majority of them couldn't pay their rent and utilities, and the upper offices had to bail them out, do you ever see one or any of these buildings being offered up for bankruptcy? Well, let me just correct one thing real fast, because the ideal orgs do not have to pay rent, as far as I know, unless somebody has information or evidence contrary to that. When the buildings are purchased, they're purchased and owned by the Church of Scientology International, and they don't charge rent to the lower churches. So that's one of the reasons why I think many of them are still open in the first place. From my time in Sea Org management of the Western United States, we had to bail out the lower churches all the time, right, before they were ideal orgs. I'm talking about Albuquerque, Hawaii, Salt Lake City, Valley, Church of Scientology, the Valley in Los Angeles, right? Santa Barbara. These orgs weren't making enough to pay their mortgage payments or pay their rent and keep the lights on and keep the doors open. So much less pay their staff. They were making minuscule amounts of money. And so we had to pay the difference in order to keep them open, because we had threats of orgs closing all the time. So that was sort of the standard operating procedure for these small, struggling, failing churches. And it was always a problem. And so one of the problems that the ideal org thing solved, which I thought was pretty smart at the time, was the orgs would now have a stable building that they didn't have to pay rent in, right? So now all they have to do is keep the lights on, keep the air conditioning and the heating going, and keep the doors open, right? And they don't have to pay property tax because they're tax exempt. So really the expenses, I thought it was, from an organizational standpoint, I thought it was a pretty brilliant move, having dealt with all those bailouts for all those years. Now, if this doesn't change the fact, though, that these ideal orgs get pretty small pretty fast, right? They open with big fanfare and hundreds of people, and oh my God, it's so amazing, and we're going to clear, Italy now, and we're going to clear Las Vegas, and we're going to clear Minnesota, and these things open up, and everybody thinks it's all wonderful. And then you go back to them in a few weeks or a few months, and the staff numbers have shrunk back down to like 20 or 30 people, and they're barely making any money at all, and they're so they're paying their utilities and they're not paying their staff as usual, and it's all just back to the same old, because while the ideal org strategy might resolve the fact that they don't have to pay rent anymore, it doesn't resolve anything else. And it certainly isn't attracting new people to Scientology, right? If anything, they just walk in, see these big empty, beautiful buildings and go, wow, these guys really do have a lot of money. And okay, bye, and they're a bunch of weirdos, and they leave. So, and you see that in article after article after article and stuff like that. So back to your question now directly of, if they are making so little money that they can't even keep the lights on, right? Then they're going to really have a problem, right? And management would then again have to bail them out. And I don't think you're going to see, well, let's just put it this way. When they start closing local city churches like the one here in Denver or, Milan, Italy, or, wherever, London or wherever, when they start actually closing the doors, man, that's it. It's game over for Scientology. I mean, literally, that is going to be the end of it, because their number one policy with their churches is that those churches don't close, ever, period, ever, right? Because that would be the ultimate sign of failure. And so the management levels would be demanded to pay to keep those churches open and keep the doors open for as long as possible. Do I ever see any of these buildings being offered up for bankruptcy? When the church actually collapses, yeah, but not until then, not really. So that's kind of how that system works.